Yeah.
So today, to raise a question for Ariam that she come from a totally different perspective on that. Now, the speaker was talking about abundance, talking about connectivity and different kinds of things that are working, and how you could actually put it together properly for connected learning and education to be in different groups. But now, for someone in the refugee camp, no electricity, they don't have internet connection and all that. How do they grow in such a situation? Can she give us an insight into what does it mean to kind of like grow in such a?
So I don't. Yeah, like of course it would be more convenient if you had electricity all the time and connectivity. And there's like much bigger issues like flooding and people die and it's horrible. And then kids can't go to school and those are much bigger issues. I think lack of connectivity doesn't really stop us from doing the program. Like it still goes. The kids enjoy it. The teachers really enjoy it. I think actually what's a much bigger issue is, if anything, I think it's really easy to get the kids to show up because this is a rare opportunity for them where they get to make and learn by making and be creative and express themselves. So I think that's easy. I think with the teachers, the most important thing is having motivated teachers who enjoy what they're doing and feel supported. And I think that's the key. And I think what's challenging in this space is, and I think this is like whether you're working in Kenya or the United States or Asia, wherever it is, the challenge is donors care about numbers. They want scale, they want their money to go as far as possible. And I think what's challenging is this type of learning is, right, it's about a small teacher-student ratio. That's what it's about. It's not about like one teacher per 50 students. It's not going to be as effective. And this type of learning takes longer and it's more intensive for a teacher and requires more professional development. And donors don't want to put their money into that. They don't like putting money into building the capacity of teachers. And that is the most challenging aspect of this work. That's why a lot of the times you don't see this type of work scaling the way that it should. That's my personal opinion. Like I've had to fight so hard to get the money for the professional development that I have, which I still don't even think is enough, because they don't understand the impact that actually has on the learning outcomes at the end of the day. And we have to help them understand how critical that is. So that I think is actually what would lead to all of this failing, if anything.
Any thoughts from virtual participants?
So I would like to know, thank you very much for your insight about the camps and everything, and the challenges teachers are facing and organizers. I would like to know what you mentioned, that kids are making something and having and learning for fun. So what are they making there?
So the kids are put into, they make games about issues that are relevant to their communities, but they have to work in intercultural groups. For example, in Kakuma, you have refugees who come from Sudan, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi. So they work in groups of 3 to 4, usually 3, and they all come from different countries. And they have to make games about an issue that's usually related to the Sustainable Development Goals, like maybe education, migration. It's something that's it's interest driven. So they actually like we do like a gallery type of walk activity where like they choose the issues. So some in the past, students have actually come up with like corruption and migration, like things that have been on their mind. And then they get to do a 1, 2, 3 of what it is they want to work on, like their top 3 choices. They usually get one of those choices, and then they're grouped. And then they design and prototype. They do a paper prototype of a game, and then they do an actual. They build a game from scratch.
You're not doing a session
Wonderful.
at this conference.
Thank you.
Gosh, I think you should do a session.
Very exciting, yes. Thank you. Are they using technology?
Yes, so they design their games in Scratch, but we really encourage them to paper prototype everything. Iteration is a big concept that they learn about in the program.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You know, I'm really struck, you know, in this interest, and all these virtually connecting sessions are designed to be kind of hallway conversations. And I think we've really started to have one here, including the interruption. But when I hear about this work in Kenya, it makes me want to draw connections back to the environment that a lot of us are in. And I'm wondering if some of the other folks there in the room are thinking about how what we've just been hearing about what's going on in refugee camps also resonates or connects to the kind of education work that they're doing in the US. Or maybe not. I see Gardner nodding, but or take it another direction too.
Yeah, I count 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm back. Yeah, so I want to underscore. Tell me your name again.
Ariam.
Ariam, A-R-I-A-M. Okay, great, Ariam. I want to underscore something Ariam said about this desire for, on everyone's part. It could be donors, it could be state legislatures, it could be granting agencies, whatever. But this idea of scaling. And my experience as an educator has always been that connections scale across a network. They don't scale in terms of the size of the particular moment in a room necessarily. And people are witless about this, and it makes me very frustrated. I had other words in mind, but we'll go with frustrated. There are people in this world who know the truth that we must, if we're going to scale up anything, we must scale up the resources available to identify and develop and empower these kinds of small scale connections, especially between teachers and students. And we just, certainly in the US, we just seem to refuse to do that as a society. And so then what we do is say, well, okay, that's not really the learning we mean. We mean this other factory style of learning, and so we'll fund that. And it's Orwellian. It's like, well, we'll define hate, and we'll know we love each other. It's like, no, you won't. That's not right. That's wrong. So what puzzles me is that I think most human beings understand the transformative power of an intimate connection. Again, Michelle talked about this morning, that teacher who reaches out and says, you know, you think this is just like breathing, but it's really a talent that you have. And I want to affirm that, and I want to help that grow. You know, that's where this starts. Fund that, you know, fund that. And not all teachers are going to come to that naturally themselves. Help teachers feel empowered to affirm themselves, especially with these rich technologies that we have available, rich in terms of the density of connection that's possible. And why don't we fund that? Now that would be nice. But I just, that's a place where this resonates with me. And I feel like there is so much educational policy in the US that is turning learners into refugees, and it makes me crazy. I don't know what to do about it except do whatever I can with what's in front of me.
But hey, Gardner, I had a question about one piece of what you were saying, which I largely agree with, but is the problem with scale itself or the focus of scale, or what is being scaled exactly, in your opinion?
Well, I'll just, I mean, there's a whole lot I could say about that, but I'll just say that scaling can work. We have very powerful examples of that, but it appears that people are in public policy are largely reluctant to engage with that kind of thinking. I'm not sure why. Is it still fear of internet? Is it that people in the end just want to hoard resources for themselves? I mean, I don't really know. I've been working on that for a long time, and I still puzzles me about why people just at some level, they don't really even want to think seriously about the worldwide me. I'm not really sure why that happens. I would love to know if that experience is what anybody else here has, or maybe I'm just wrong and I need to find a place where people are grappling with this. But yeah, I think stuff has to scale if we want equity and access, but it can't scale using the paradigms of scaling that seem to be ever more rigid and mechanical. So anyway, that's kind of my thing.
This is reminding me of some of the things Joey Ito talked about in yesterday's keynote. And so he was talking about, solving some social problems, looking at issues like recidivism. And, we get so focused on the data and this correlation that we think the data is showing. But he said it's really, we really need to be looking at the relationships, right? So what's happening with relationships, I guess, between and the people that the data are about.
Well, I just want to also put in, John, maybe before you talk, that we know that you guys are at a conference and that you want to go to other things and so we want to be respectful of your time. So, give us some hints about maybe if we should wrap this up, or if you want to continue the conversation, that's also fine.
We have some more sessions coming up at 2. Certainly don't want to keep anyone from those.
Yeah.
So maybe John, what were you going to say?
Yeah, you're gonna say something.
I think from what he talked about, the keyword equity is something that is still a challenge. The people that really have the abundance and are not really making use of it effectively, as supposed to be, and those who tend to have kind of like barely, little or not, and they kind of like, what they have, it's still a tug of war when you talk about the fact that this is what's supposed to be the priority, because now equity tends to kind of like answer the question that, okay, now we're going to use this appropriately in the way it should be, not just generalize it, don't just say, oh, everybody will be equal. No, when we look at the heights here, not everybody can be exactly the same height. So, and sometimes some people will need more or some would need less. So you don't have to say, yeah, we'll scale and everybody. It doesn't connect like that. And those are the things that I think should be in the forefront of discussions that educators have with people in society and government, with policymakers. They see from different multiple dimension and diverse ways of things. And it will really help in the long run. So that's my one.
Well said.
Should we use that as an opportunity for the final word, or are there any other thoughts from the folks there at the summit before we let you go on to your next session? And how about our virtual participants? Do you want to say goodbye, or do you have any last thoughts?
I was just going to say, I'm really interested. This is really interesting to me. Like, the effective use of abundance. I don't know, I mean, is there anything else you can say about that? That's really interesting.
We may have to take it up in another session.
Okay, all right. John's going to regroup. John's going to be back tomorrow for the second session of the conference, and so he'll have a response.
Prepared.
To Gardner's question. Hear more about effective use of abundance tomorrow at same bat time, 1 p.m.
And if I might say this, my first daughter is actually abundance. That's on it.
Oh,
yes,
nice.
My first daughter is abundance, so I kind of like no relative.
You know, man.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, thanks.
Thanks, folks.
And thanks for struggling through the technical difficulties. We really appreciate it and hope you have a really good summit. It was great to talk with all of you. And we're going to turn off the broadcasting